China with a warning for the United States. If the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi travels to Taiwan next month, they'll take strong measures. In a statement today, a spokesman for China's foreign ministry said the trip would severely undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, gravely impact the foundation of China-U.S. relations, and send a seriously wrong signal to Taiwan independence forces. He added, if the U.S. were to insist on going down the wrong path, China will take resolute and strong measures to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. According to the Financial Times, Speaker Pelosi is planning to lead a delegation to Taiwan in August. The timing of the trip is particularly sensitive for China. Next month is also when China marks the anniversary of the founding of the People's Liberation Army. Sources tell the Financial Times there were divisions in the Biden administration over whether Speaker Pelosi should take the trip. If she does, she'll become the highest-ranking American lawmaker to visit Taiwan since her predecessor Newt Gingrich traveled there a quarter century ago. China.
Latest news, China. Headliner, China's response to Pelosi's potential Taiwan visit could be unprecedented, but military conflict unlikely. The United States is no stranger to China's angry responses over its support for Taiwan, the self-governing island that Beijing claims as its own territory. Last week, China's warnings against a potential high-stakes trip by U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taipei appeared to have caused concern in Washington. Following reports of Pelosi's plans, China's foreign ministry vowed last Tuesday to take resolute and forceful measures if the trip goes ahead. Since then, a flurry of remarks from U.S. officials have only added to the sense of alarm. On Wednesday, U.S. President Joe Biden told reporters the U.S. military thinks a Taiwan visit by Pelosi is not a good idea right now. On Thursday, Pelosi said it's important to show support for Taiwan, but declined to discuss any travel plans, citing security. Pelosi went on to say, I think what the president was saying is that maybe the military was afraid of my plane getting shot down or something like that. I don't know exactly. On Sunday, former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also weighed in, offering to join Pelosi on her repeated trip, saying, Nancy, I'll go with you. I'm banned in China, but not freedom-loving Taiwan. See you there. In private, Biden administration officials have expressed concern that China could seek to declare a no-fly zone over Taiwan to upend the possible trip, a U.S. official told CNN. But with Pelosi's potential visit now playing out in public, any decision to delay or not go risks being seen as a concession. Republican Senator Ben Sasse said on Monday, Speaker Pelosi should go to Taiwan and President Biden should make it abundantly clear to Chairman Xi that there's not a damn thing the Chinese Communist Party can do about it. No more feebleness and self-deterrence. Headliner, Taiwan begins 5 days of war games simulating PLA attack. Dozens of Taiwanese fighter jets scrambled in an emergency response drill at the start of the island's annual war games on Monday, amid rising tensions across the Taiwan Strait. The live-fire Han Quan exercise runs for 5 days and coincides with the self-ruled island's Wan-an air raid drills. It began in the morning with indigenous defense fighters and U.S.-made F-16Bs flying from the west and southwest of the island to air bases in eastern Taiwan. The drill was a simulation of a People Liberation Army attack involving missiles and warplanes aimed at Taiwan's southwestern air bases. Fighter jets were told to take shelter at the eastern bases, including underground hangars at Chiashan, before taking on the PLA, according to Taiwan's defense ministry. The Lockheed C-130 Hercules turboprop military transport aircraft was also sent to the east of the island to supply spare parts and components for the warplanes there. Mobile military radar vehicles were also put to the test, along with the readiness of warships and troops at major seaports and the offshore islands of Penghu or Pescadores, Quinoi, Kinnan, and Mitsaus, the ministry said. It said the first 2 days of the exercise were focused on preservation and air defense readiness in the event of attack, followed by joint assault operations across the Air Force, Navy, and Army on day there, Homeland Defense said in the last 2 days. President Tsai Ing-wen is expected to observe a maritime drill involving more than 20 warships from aboard the Keelung, a Kidd-class destroyer off Taiwan's northeast, on Tuesday. It will be the first time she has watched a Han Quan exercise from a naval vessel since she took office in 2016, though she did observe a smaller drill from a guided missile destroyer in 2018. That's the news. And now my thoughts. As if the Ukraine crisis hasn't been exacerbated by the federal government under the Biden administration, as well as Pentagon officials. Now we are dealing with the second biggest economy on the face of the earth, in which this should prove that there are no left and right political divisions in the federal government. There's only one party. There's only us, and there's them. Pelosi's trip to Taiwan was backed by Newt Gingrich and other right-wing pundits. Fox News even spoke highly of Pelosi's visit. And as we all know, the right has been clamoring for war against China and Iran for the last 10 years. The relationship deteriorated sharply under President Trump, even though the relationship prior to Trump had been tentative at best. And the issues that deteriorated under Trump, such as China's militarization of the South China Sea and Chinese espionage in the United States, are rising. And according to multiple articles from Radio Free Asia and the National Archives, as well as articles written by The Verge and the New York Times, the relationship deteriorated exponentially under Trump, and it subsequently launched a trade war against China and banned U.S. companies from selling equipment to Huawei, which is a Chinese multinational technology corporation in Guangdong, China, as well as other companies linked to the human rights abuses in Xinjiang, and increased visa restrictions on Chinese national students and scholars, and designated China as a currency manipulator. I think that's ironic, since there are more speculators in the United States than anywhere in the world, which have destroyed the economy, as well as outsourcing companies to countries like China. Thank you, Clinton, and the NAFTA agreement. But during the Trump administration, and especially since the U.S.-China trade war began, as you could see, we might be heading, and this is backed by political observers who have written op-ed pieces in the New York Times, and as well as South China Morning Post and Financial Times, that they're starting to warn that a new Cold War is emerging. Now, this makes a lot of sense. Since war is meant to be continuous, as George Orwell once famously wrote in his book, 1984, the threat of Arab extremism no longer exists. Al-Qaeda is all but decimated, save for the Arabian Peninsula, and there are no large international threats. The Islamic State is all but finished in Syria. And even though Boko Haram is a threat in North Africa, they are not an international threat. So we need to make a new threat. Now, not to pick on the Trump administration, the tensions between U.S. and China have remained quite high under the Biden administration, which I must say that under one of the the bulletin points that Biden ran under was one of the focal points under the Biden election was that he was going to um, pay attention to the China U.S. foreign policy program. And the more confrontational stance with the Biden administration was focusing on China's treatment of Hong Kong and its threats against Taiwan. Now, there have been great, fantastic articles written about the Uyghur genocide, one of such which is from Patrick McFarland of Liberty Weekly. And I consider the Libertarian Institute to be the most sane and most reputable voices when it comes to U.S. foreign policy. And I'll make sure to link Libertarian Institute in the description. Now, in response, China has adopted the wolf warrior diplomacy, which is basically an aggressive style of coercive tactics by Chinese diplomats and politicians, which was to deny all accusations of human rights abuses. Now, I'm not going to opine on this because this is one area that I am quite lacking in when it comes to the Uyghur genocide and whatnot. But as you can see, the federal government of the United States is not making things any better by similarly treating Taiwan like Ukraine. Now, we spent billions of dollars to Ukraine. Meanwhile, we're in a financial crisis, an existential crisis, I might add. Homelessness is on the rise. And no matter what Biden will tell you, he's a liar, just like Trump. They'll tell you anything other than the truth. These people do not care about human life. They care about their own lives and their own benefits and agendas. And you're not party to it. The only thing you're good for is to vote. And if you vote, then you're voting in the problem. No more Democrats and Republicans. You want to vote, vote Libertarian. If you want to say, oh, we're throwing away a vote, you're throwing away a vote by voting blue or red. It doesn't matter. I'll go with the winner, you might say. Well, you're the loser. They're the winner. You're the loser. Nothing gets better. Nothing gets done. Every 4 years, they tell you the same old song and you fall for it. And I think it's high time you owe yourself for a better future. If you're not going to think about yourself, think about your children, if you have any, or loved ones, who are younger than you. Is this the future you want to lead to them? We have the most powerful voice in the world, and we should start using it. And the last thing we need is a long, drawn-out war with a major power in this world, China. They have more military members than us. And if you vote for the right or the left on the issues of U.S. foreign policy, if you vote for them because you don't think a third party is deserving, well, then you deserve the future that you're going to get. And you know what's coming. This ain't Iraq. This ain't Syria. This ain't Libya. This ain't Afghanistan. A war with China or Iran is a disaster, not just on a linear level, but on an economic level, on a spiritual level, a mental level. And it won't be over in 1 or 2 years. They both have formidable armies. And if you are really anti-war and you're for real libertarian and classic conservative values, then you must decide to not vote, to not support, to not watch these left and right-wing ideologues clamor for war that will only end in disaster.